That's what we're needing.
What does it actually mean when something is a 0-day virus
a 0-day
or a hack?
Is an unknown vulnerability, unknown to everyone except the attacker. All right. So if I'm attacking, say, Amazon, and I've got a 0-day vulnerability or a 0-day attack, Amazon doesn't know about it. The security community doesn't know about it. Who knows about it? I know about it. Maybe my little circle of people know about it, or the person that I bought the 0-day knows about it. All right. But the victim doesn't know about it. That's the big one at that point. But 0-day attacks,
meaning that there's no sort of symptoms of anything being out of place, or
it's interesting you would mention that. All right. There's always symptoms of something being out of place. So 90% of every single attack uses known exploits.
right?
Okay, so it's not 0-day attacks that are the problem. The problem is the known exploits that are out there. We've been preaching for years. Not me, because I was on the bad guy's side, but people have been preaching about for years what needs to be done. They've not been listened to, and that creates a problem. Think of the two largest cyber attacks in history. You've got SolarWinds and you've got NotPetya. All right, SolarWinds is going to be the largest.
What was the other one?
NotPetya.
I haven't heard of that one.
So NotPetya is they're both nation-state attacks. They're both Russian state. NotPetya is attacking the Ukraine. SolarWinds is, of course, attacking the United States.
Right.
All right. So NotPetya, the Sandworm group, and there's a good book on it. I think it's called Sandworm, but there's a very good book that details this too. So the Russian Sandworm group, the top hacking group on the planet, they go and they launch an attack against the Ukrainian people. They take over basically the QuickBooks of the Ukraine.
Oh, shit.
How do they take it over? They take over its update server by faking a Microsoft certificate. Known exploit. All right?
Okay.
They then release this thing that looks like it's ransomware, but it's not. There was a ransomware attack called Petya a year prior, and it uses some of the code from Petya to make it look like it's ransomware, but it's not. It's a program that's simply sent to destroy hard drives. It's not ransomware at all. It's just going to destroy systems. So that attack uses Eternal Blue and Eternal Romance, both known exploits, which were patched a year prior. No one had applied the patches. It uses Mimikatz to harvest credentials out of RAM, because Microsoft systems, even after you've logged out, those credentials are still in RAM. Mimikatz will get that out of there for you. All right, so it uses that known exploit. It looks for outward-facing SMBs. We've known about that for years. We've told people to shut that shit down, that remote access. All right, you would think wouldn't be many systems out like that. Millions are out like that. All right, another known exploit. It chains all those together to cause over $50 billion worth of damage. On record, that's still the largest cyber attack in history.
Wow.
It gets outside of the Ukraine because it looks for those SMBs that are open. It gets outside, it hits Maersk, it hits pharmaceutical companies that have still not been mentioned today, causes over $50 billion in damage. The largest, most sophisticated attack in history, all using known exploits, not a 0-day one listed there. All right. SolarWinds, same fucking thing.
Right.
So SolarWinds, what do you got? You got the SolarWinds, the password, SolarWinds 123. You got all these known exploits. I've got a 130-page class action lawsuit printed out at the house I've been working my way through that details how SolarWinds knew of every single vulnerability that they had. They brought auditors in, they brought pen testers in, everything else, and people would warn them about it, and they would dismiss these people. They would lie to their investors, everything else about all the known vulnerabilities that were there. All right. Meanwhile, what's happening? Meanwhile, you've got the attackers that are getting the source code for Microsoft products. You've got all these stuff that are getting snapshots of all these Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies, every single aspect of those companies. That, once the chips are down, that will be the largest attack in history, the largest, most successful attack. Again, no 0 days involved with that. All right. So it's not
That's
0 days.
insane.
That's a problem. Stuxnet is extremely,
There
it
was
is
4
effective
0
as
days.
fuck.
They said it was 4 0 days inside
And
of
that's
that
impressive.
virus.
I mean, when you think about it, because most attacks don't have to use 0 days. But when you do have a 0 day that you can properly use, oh my God, you are doing something at that point.
Right.
All right. It's just not very common, and you don't have to rely on it to be effective in attacks, as these other two attacks point out. Okay.
Why is Russia and Ukraine always in the conversation when you're talking about this kind of shit?
So, for financial cybercrime, it's really the Ukraine. Okay, Russia's there too, but Vladimir. It's weird, man. Vladimir Putin was talking about how Ukrainians are Russians. All right,
Right.
Now the weird thing about that is if you're a Ukrainian cyber criminal, you kind of buy into that shit. All right, because Vladimir's like, hey, man, we harbor you, we protect you. Sometimes
Right.
we hire you.
Right.
Shit like that. Even though you're still got that Ukrainian nationality of yourself, you kind of feed into that a little bit. At the same time, the Ukrainians have been very good about harboring and protecting their own cyber criminals. They will give up some of those people, but like Dmitry, he was never extradited at all. The only reason Roman Vega was arrested was because he was in Cyprus at that point in time. So they harbor a lot of cyber criminals. You are allowed to commit crime in those areas as long as you don't shit where you eat, as long as you don't commit crime against your people. But in Western capitalist countries instead,
Really?
you're not going to get in trouble. So you take all those Russian cyber criminals that are over there, as long as they stay in Russia, there's nothing that's going to happen to those guys. Nothing. They're not going to be extradited. The only way they get caught, and you see this happening every now and then, one of these idiots that's stolen a few $1,000,000, he decides he wants to vacation on a beach somewhere, and he gets on a friggin' plane, flies out, and the feds arrest him immediately when he lands.
That's the problem. You can't leave.
You cannot leave, all right? But as long as you're happy in that area, you're a millionaire, you got your Lambo, you got all this other bullshit that's going on, you got your connections, you got a lot of power, and you're done at that point. And that's the same thing in Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has gotten better at extraditing some of these people. So some of the attackers that hit Colonial Pipeline, I think they got extradited recently. A couple other guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a couple other guys got extradited from the Ukraine as well. But they still harbor and protect those people. And that becomes a huge problem. And it's so effective. There was a case about 4 years ago in Russia where these cyber criminals had actually rented an entire office building. The entire building was just a cybercrime business. You had 400 employees, and each floor had a different type of crime that was taking place at that point. So that's what that type of environment allows. That's why they're so successful. Ukraine's so big because it was the tech sector of the Soviet Union. So now you had a lot of guys after the Union falls that were highly trained, could not get a job. The guys that I knew, they didn't really want to commit crime. They were just looking to eat. And what you see this, forgot the guy's name. Wired did a story on this, but one of the guys that got caught, he tells the feds this, and the feds start to advertise for employment. And you had all these cyber criminals that started to apply for these jobs. They were doing credit card fraud, but they didn't want to do that. They just wanted a job.